Hi and welcome to the NXT TakeOver War Games review here on SCW on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now. Leave any comments in the comment section. Please like and share the video as well. What a great takeover this was. Just before we start going and dissecting match by match, this is my favourite takeover of the entire year. Now, of course, NXT for me suffers more than most shows without its fan base there. I always feel that, obviously, 2020, we can't have full arenas and stuff like that, and shows are particularly quieter. I always feel NXT suffers more than most of this, but what I would say is that even though it does lack that fan experience, this for me felt like a solid takeover. And takeovers always deliver, but this one felt like the traditional standard that we are used to. And I do feel as well that the War Games matches really did thrive with the competitors and the environments, with the way that the rivalries and everything was put together. So kudos to everyone that was involved on this show. And we kicked off with the first War Games match of the evening. We had the women's War Game match, Team Shotzi against Team Candice. Just to remind you, if you were unaware of the participants in the match for Team Shotzi, we had Shotzi Blackheart, of course, the team captain, with the NXT Women's Champion Io Shirai. Rhea Ripley was there, and Ember was part of Team Shotzi. For Team Candice, of course, the captain Candice LeRae. We had Dakota and Raquel Gonzalez and Toni Storm. And of course, Indy Hartwell, of course, is aligned with Candice LeRae, and we will be mentioning her, of course, as the video does progress. But to go into this match, of course, the rules are that two people, one from each team, start in the War Game structure, two rings, a cage surrounding it, and they compete for 5 minutes. The team with the advantage then has a participant come in, then every 3 minutes another participant will come in, alternating from each team till we have all 4 and all 8 ladies, we should say, in the War Game structure. But before we go diving right into this match, one thing that should be mentioned of note, Shotzi Blackheart did unveil a brand new tank coming out. And of course, the tank is a part of the logo for War Games this year. It did look pretty badass coming out, and actually did fire towards the War Game structure, which Dakota was there. And of course, thankfully, the cage was in the way, or else that could have been a little bit nasty for Dakota, I would say. But Dakota was representing Team Candice to kick things off, and we did have Shotzi seemed keen to start, but Ember was actually taking the first 5 minutes for Team Shotzi. But of course, they had the advantage, the babyfaces. Shotzi Blackheart came next to the ring, quickly putting toys into the ring. It looked like a toolbox was brought in, but we did continue as normal. Raquel Gonzalez got involved there, and from this point, it just felt that the heels were always finding a way to have the advantage despite being at a disadvantage. It was one thing that I did notice with the cage, that the heels were quite dominant throughout this match, and we did get to where we got to the next stage, and Rhea Ripley came to balance things out. Of course, Rhea Ripley has the sort of similar height to Raquel Gonzalez, so we had that nice little standoff between them two in the War Games structure. Toni Storm come involved next, and I must admit, looking as we go to the match here, I do feel that in the early portion from when Toni Storm actually entered this cage, she felt like an MVP almost for this team, the way that she was going around. But the ultimate MVP, definitely for the heel side, has to be Raquel Gonzalez, because she was tall, she was dominant, and every time it felt like the babyfaces were going to get on top, she found a way to make an example of the babyfaces so that they couldn't get involved. Io Shirai was the last member trying to get into the War Game structure, and what was really tasteful about this, to give the heels the advantage here, Raquel Gonzalez found every opportunity to stop Io Shirai getting into the War Game structure until Candice LeRae had found a way in. I really liked that. Weapons were involved with kendo sticks, Toni Storm taking turnbuckle pads off as if there wasn't enough steel already. There was more being brought into play. A ladder had been brought into the match as well at this point. So, I mean, there was a lot of toys that were involved in the War Game structure. It was brutal. It was hardcore. Indy Hartwell as well actually did come over the barricade to attack Io Shirai to make it even harder for her to get involved in the cage. And then she did lock the cage door as well there, and actually put the key in her top. That way there was no way of getting out via the door. The only way out of in the War Game structure then was to climb the cage, and that's exactly what Io Shirai did. Io Shirai actually climbed towards the top of there with a trash can, put it over the top of her, and then went flying off onto every competitor in the War Game structure. Yes, it does look a bit choreographed, but I do think it was a really fun and a cool spot, and certainly is one thing I'm going to remember when I look back at this match in probably a couple of years' time. But yeah, as I say, the heels found a way to dominate the whole way through. There were some brutal spots going throughout the match, and as we head towards the end of the match, Shotzi Blackheart came flying off of a ladder, but of course to land on Candice LeRae, who had a steel chair there, which kind of nullified that attack. We also had 2 steel chairs that were placed on one each side of the ring with a ladder in the middle of them, and Raquel Gonzalez actually did the one-handed powerbomb onto Io Shirai through the ladder off the top rope, aerialing on the cage side, and of course that was what got the magic pinfall for 1, 2, 3, and of course the heels picking up the victory. For me, Raquel Gonzalez here really comes out with a star-making performance and also solidifies herself as a #1 contender with the fact that she actually pinned the NXT Women's Champion. It's kind of how I felt this should have gone really when I look back at the match, because the heels had things to gain here. I mean, if the babyfaces had won, I'm not sure where everyone goes from here. Io Shirai would not had a championship contender. Rhea Ripley already, it feels like there's not so much more for her to do in NXT, in my opinion. And with the other two, Shotzi and Ember, they still have storylines going forward after this. Ember can look to try and get revenge on Toni Storm, and Shotzi can get revenge on Candice LeRae another day. So for me, this worked really, really well. I did think it was an interesting dynamic, but I think that NXT, they were very clever and how they managed to still give the heels the advantage throughout the remainder of the match, despite the fact that babyfaces having the official advantage. I thought this was a great War Games match and a great opener. I really enjoyed this match in the show, and it went just under an hour long as well. Next, we went to Tommaso Ciampa against Timothy Thatcher, and this was hard-hitting, physical, as Jim Ross would once say, bowling shoe ugly, but in a very good way. I really enjoyed this match between these two, and I love the fact that there was a lot of focus on Tommaso Ciampa's neck throughout the match there from Thatcher. As well, Thatcher got quite bloody as well in the match when Ciampa managed to make his comeback. It was almost like a bulldog choke submission hold that was done there, when you just see Timothy Thatcher bleeding. But of course, he's that kind of guy. He loves the sight of his own blood. Yeah, these two managed to do quite a lot of catch as Thatch can, if you want, throughout the match, but eventually Tommaso Ciampa did pick up the victory. He did sort of find himself where he could put the DDT on Thatcher through the ropes and managed to pick up the pinfall. This was a really fun match. I really enjoyed it, and I really think it was the right result. Tommaso Ciampa can go back towards the top end of the NXT Championship picture, which I think we need to solidify. It's one of the weak areas currently in NXT, is that with the champion being sort of out, or not anymore, we'll come on to that in a second, but it's kind of felt like the top championship picture has lacked challengers, contenders, and that sort of area of the card. And of course, that's definitely something that needs addressing from going forward on NXT. But of course, Finn Balor did say he's coming back on Wednesday. Enjoy the War Games, enjoy the structures. Finn the Prince is back on Wednesday evening, so that is something that's really exciting. We moved on next. We had the strap match with Cameron Grimes and Dexter Lumis. And what I really enjoyed about this match, because usually with the strap matches you have to touch the 4 turnbuckles, and I think that's a bit dated, if I'm being brutally honest. But actually looking at it, this was more like a hardcore match, and it was just a straight up pinfall or submission match with a strap involved, which I thought was quite a unique, refreshed rule set for this gimmick match. And it seemed at the start that Cameron Grimes was trying to escape, trying to climb into the crowd area, and he wasn't successful, but instead he managed to get the advantage using quite a lot of strength as well. Cameron Grimes, he come off looking quite strong in this, with some couple of brutal spots with using the strap as well, with Dexter Lumis going flying over the barricade the other side of the ring, thankfully where the fans were not, also coming back over the barricade to the ringside area. I just felt that looking at it, this was kind of nicely done. I mean, a lot of the match, especially for the first half of it, was outside of the ring, and when you've had War Games and you had Timothy Thatcher and Ciampa, which most of that time all the matches are inside, it felt quite refreshing to see this outside of the ring. Cameron Grimes had a great way of actually defending himself and countering a lot of maneuvers, but eventually he did come unstuck, and he went headfirst. He was kind of had the strap around his feet, that was pulled by Lumis, and he went headfirst into a steel chair that was sitting into the ring. He then went and fell victim to Dexter Lumis' submission hold, which he was kind of 50 Shades of Grey, you could say. He was really strapped up, if you want, and yeah, he was choked out, and your winner was Dexter Lumis. And again, I think it's the right result. Lumis needed the victory more. I can see him getting a big push in NXT. Cameron Grimes doesn't get hurt by defeat, but I do think he looked really strong in this match, and certainly this went above my expectation. This match I felt was very, very good. Next, we had the Triple Threat North American Championship match, and to believe it or not, the only championship match on the entire show. Not something we're used to for NXT takeovers, but we had the Triple Threat, of course, the unlikely champion of Leon Ruff defending against Damien Priest and Johnny Gargano. early into the match here. I thought it was a really well told story. I like the fact that Leon Ruff was kind of getting in the way of Damien Priest and both attacking Johnny Gargano. Priest had enough and said, look, get out of the way. I don't want to hurt you. Just go, leave the guys to do this. This is my thing to finish off. And Leon Ruff wasn't having any of it. So he got razor's edged through a almost like a glass pod part of the barricade and had to be taken to the back. This left Gargano and Priest to be attacking one another. But of course, Leon Ruff did make his return to the ring. He wasn't going to give up that easy the North American Championship, actually using Damien Priest, who was on the ring apron area, as a springboard to go in and attack Johnny Gargano. These three then went going, all out towards the finish, but we had a number of Ghostface come to the ring. It felt like there was 6 of them in total, and Damien Priest doing his best to take all of them out. And I must admit, I thought this was all the castaways of Retribution that had left behind when they'd moved to Monday Night Raw. And fun enough I say that, and actually T-Bar actually did tweet, by the way, and just said, yeah, I was wondering where all the Retribution reinforcements went. I guess Gargano stole them to celebrate Halloween or whatever, which I thought was quite a funny tweet. But yeah, Damien Priest managed to take all these sort of guys out, but at the same time, once he'd left Johnny Gargano in the ring, he actually almost assisted for Leon Ruff to retain the championship. So this was kind of well played out in a way, but what I would say is that I do feel that all these ghost faces were slightly unnecessary, as the fact that we had one ultimate ghost face come in and attack Damien Priest with a lead pipe, and this person then actually eliminated Priest from the match. Johnny Gargano actually then managing to pick up the victory on what was left a vulnerable Leon Ruff, and we have a 3-time North American champion now in Johnny Gargano, who picked up the victory. And we had then the ultimate Ghostface actually reveal himself at the end of the match, which was none other than Austin Theory, who did actually have quite a cool line. It was me all along, Austin, of course playing off the Vince McMahon higher power. Of course Triple H definitely has probably fed a good line to him there, and it was quite a cool moment, but I'm sure that this was received kind of hit and miss from what I saw on Twitter. But it's the predicted route going into this, and I did feel that this is what I think should have happened, and I think that we could perhaps get some form of Gargano stable, a mixed gender stable, of course, with Gargano, Candice, Indy, and Austin Theory. It's almost like they're going to try and teach Indy and Austin Theory the Gargano way to try and elevate them further going forward. And I think it makes logical sense. Of course, Austin Theory did quit a few weeks ago as well. He had a great match with Johnny Gargano not so long ago, where Johnny felt like he gained the respect for Austin in that match after picking up the victory. So this kind of works for me in storyline terms, so I'm okay with it. But I would turn around and say that as for a match, I thought it was really good, but we have so many ghost faces that I kind of feel that there may be slightly bit of a cluster, because are we going to get about 7 or 8 reveals here? Is Gargano going to have a real multiple Gargano stable for this Gargano way? I'm not so sure. I felt that maybe we've been teased too many ghost faces, but what I will say is that we have the main 2 that we needed to know, and I'm personally satisfied with both of them, because I mean Austin Theory then would have helped Gargano win the North American Championship at Halloween Havoc. Indy Hartwell would have tried to help Candice over Io Shirai at that event, so I think that makes kind of logical sense when you look at things overall. Couple of notes just before we go in towards the main event, and we had another video package playing, and it looked like we had some sort of a vulture, and of course the clock is ticking. Definitely the return of Karrion Kross. It looks like the NXT Championship picture all of a sudden looks a lot healthier already. The return of Finn Balor looks like Karrion Kross is coming back. Ciampa picking up a victory. So it looks like we're starting to get there already. We also had an advertisement for New Year's Evil, which looks to be on the 6th of January. I think this is a cool name for the event, personally. It looks like obviously that's going to be the halfway point between now and the next NXT TakeOver. And yeah, I mean, definitely it's good to throw something out there. It's good to have revolving around New Year's Evil. I think it's a cool name, and potentially we could be having Finn Balor against Karrion Kross on that event for the NXT Championship. We'll have to wait and see, because of course Balor is the champion. Karrion Kross never lost the championship, so this could be a place for that. We'll have to wait and see, but I'm pretty excited with the idea of that. We've got 4 weeks to build for it, so yeah, let's see what NXT puts together over the next coming weeks and what we'll get there. Maybe we may even get Raquel Gonzalez getting her championship match against Io Shirai. Time will tell, and like I say, the build will be coming over the next number of weeks. And last but not least, let's talk about then the men's War Games this match. Of course, we had Pat McAfee's team, of course, himself, with the tag team champions Oney, Lorcan and Danny Burch and Pete Dunne, taking on the UE Undisputed Era. Of course, goes without saying, Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. The match started with Pete Dunne and Kyle O'Reilly. Great choice for both of these. I mean, it feels like they're the right journeyman to go and carry through the entire match, in my personal opinion. This was more traditional. The heels had the advantage going in, so of course we'd see Oney Lorcan come in next and the double team on Kyle O'Reilly. Bobby Fish come in to make the save there, of course a former tag team in their own right and multiple time NXT tag team champions to try and even the odds. Danny Burch would come in. One thing I really liked with every time the heels were going to make the entrance in, Pat McAfee sort of puffed his shoulders and like, I'm going to go in, and he was always stopped by someone. It's like, oh okay, no, you go first, I'll go in later, it's not a problem, I can take my time. Pat McAfee's just got natural heel heat there, and he's very unlikable, but he is gold as well. The more I see of him, the more I get impressed with what he brings to the table. We'll be mentioning more about tables, pun intended, very shortly. Of course, he does come into the match himself eventually as the last member, and he starts putting tables into the ring. It's natural. I mean, what's really fun here is that you mix up the weapons with this for the men's, for the women's. Earlier in the match, Danny Burch actually brought in cricket bats, which was a nice little touch, and I think something that certainly Ben Stokes would be proud of, a few of them shots that were thrown at. And yeah, I mean, it looked quite brutal. We're seeing those cricket bats. They're very heavy. They're much worse than sort of baseball bats for Americans that are watching this. It just was a nice touch. It was nice as well with a British touch as well, certainly coming from a Brit that's recording this right now. But back to the tables spot there, Pat McAfee just piling tables in there with the Undisputed Era logo and all their names on the table. So you kind of knew where this was going to go. You know that definitely they might succeed with one or two, but definitely they were going to be going through some tables there. And I must admit, McAfee looked a bit tired putting them in the cage structure, I must say. But definitely, I do think that Pat McAfee had a great job overall here. I mean, let's say when Adam Cole managed to get into the match here eventually, and it was all gang warfare between these teams here, we did have a spot where it looked like that everyone was going to be just teaming up on Pat McAfee. All the members were taken out from McAfee's team. It was just a 4-on-1. They all eventually managed to get back involved. McAfee managed to get to the top of the cage structure and did a swanton off at the top there, which looked really impressive, I must say. McAfee is impressive when it comes to the structure. We mentioned the tables. He did manage to hit a moonsault, by the way, as well, to put Roderick Strong through a table. But that was the only UE member that went through a table. It wasn't going well for the rest of the guys after that. I think it was it may have been Lorcan and Dunne that were put through by Kyle O'Reilly at one point as he jumped off the top rope with his knees. Fish actually speared, I think it was Burch, through a table as well later on in the match. Adam Cole looked like he had eventually got Pat McAfee again on his own, was going to get the victory, but it did kick out of the Panama Sunrise, Pat McAfee, which of course was what won his match at TakeOver 30. A low blow was hit as well to Adam Cole, which really looked like it was going to get things back in the heel side of things. This was just really backwards and forwards. It really felt like it could go either way for a long time, but eventually it felt like everyone was kind of just laid out, and eventually Kyle O'Reilly did actually do a jumping knee, a diving knee off the top rope by the cage structure onto the top of a steel chair and Oney Lorcan's face, which actually busted him open as well, and the UE picked up the victory. And what's really cool about that as well, Kyle O'Reilly picked up the victory. This is building for the future. Once again, we're starting to build those future stars, and Kyle O'Reilly certainly is one of them. Adam Cole initially quickly can go back into the championship picture, but we are building for Kyle O'Reilly to be a true contender in the NXT division. But this for me was a great match. I must admit, I think I slightly preferred the women's one. I would say the men's one was slightly a bit too long for me. I was getting fatigued at this point. I mean, of course, it's gone 3 o'clock in the morning, so I mean, I was still watching intently, but certainly is a bit more tiring for my time zone. And this match went around 1 hour. It certainly was the longer of the 2 War Games matches. But what I do like as well, I mean, it showed that everyone was willing to keep going. No one was giving up. People were kicking out of moments you thought that they wouldn't kick out of. But no, I think this was great overall. And like I say, I think this was an absolute solid takeover. And I mean, I think all the match predictions were correct, which is good to see. I think the fallout going from this, we'll have to see what goes forward. I mean, Pat McAfee's stable, just to say very quickly, didn't need the win. They've not been together very long. Pat McAfee's a non-wrestler. I think it would have looked bad on the Undisputed Era unless they disbanded on the UE losing here. So for me, there's no shame in the heels losing in this environment. Kyle O'Reilly can go towards the championship picture. Cole's already there. You know, we can see perhaps maybe a regroup with Pat McAfee's group. Maybe, you know, Ridge Holland, when he returns, maybe it makes them stronger. They can come from the UE once again. Maybe this isn't quite finished yet. But as a takeover, like I say, I think it's the best takeover of the year. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to give this takeover a solid 8 out of 10, maybe an 8.5 maybe. But what I'd say is it does miss fans, as I say, but I do think it's a takeover. This is the standard of what we're used to seeing on takeovers, and the War Games is such a great you know, gimmick match that's been brought in. Certainly feels fresh every time we see it in WWE, despite being the same time of year every year. I still think that this has got a great place on the calendar, and already I'm looking forward to next year's. I really thought that this was very well done, and kudos to everyone in the NXT roster. They really did deliver, and everyone left it in the ring on this night. Well, that's what I thought. What did you guys think on Twitter? Let's go to the Twitter reactions then. Ladarius Brown absolutely loved it. And no disqualifications pogged. Big E push, thought it was fantastic. I agree with both of you guys. I thought it was a great takeover show. I loved it personally myself. And Rebel Raider says that top 5 best War Games pay-per-view since 1987. Clearly thinking that this is the best one in the modern era. Of course, this is the 4th year we've had it now of NXT. So clearly Rebel Raider's favourite. And certainly I think will be a lot of people's favourites, including Mike Atanhab's Mike. She said, best takeover of the year. I agree with you on that one. Only negative was the numerous screen guys involved in the triple threat for North American title. Match was very good without it. And I do agree with you. I think that we only needed, if we're only getting one reveal, then we should have just had the one. I agree with that in my opinion. It does kind of make you feel that we were going to get a team on NXT this past week, and now it feels like we're going to get an army. But if there's more reveals, I guess so. But it could be slightly clustered, I guess. But yeah, I do agree with you. But like you said, the match was very good without it. The men's War Games for him was a match of the night. Best War Games to date, and gave it 8 out of 10. It goes on to say that the Kyle O'Reilly was the breakout start of the men's War Games match. I would have to agree with that. It did more to put him over. Of course, he was the main event of the last takeover. He wins the main event of this one. Cole is going to be NXT champion in the next year. We previously said that the women's match from 2019 was the best ever War Games match, but it was topped by the men's match last night, which is a good comment there from Mike Atanhab's Mike. I still like last year's more, but I've seen that more, and that was very shocking with the developments in that match more. So I think that's why that for me would be still my favourite. But as a solid start end from bell to bell, both of these War Games matches tonight were absolutely fantastic, and I do think that both of them actually go in the top 3. That's how highly I would rate them. I do think that they deservedly getting a lot of the praise that they're getting. But that's all from me anyway. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. The Q&A is available for you now, so go and check that out. And I will be back with you with more videos in the week for sure. But take care, have yourselves a good one, and subscribe. Near 700 subscribers. Would love to hit that milestone. So subscribe if you're watching for the first time and you enjoyed this. Maybe share with a friend as well. Have yourselves a good one. I'm probably going to have a siesta this afternoon. I'm not going to lie to you. Take care, have yourselves a good one. I'll see you next time here on YouTube.